Hey, welcome to the show, everybody. How is everybody doing? Joe, Watcher, glad you guys are here with me today because I think today's going to be a spicy one, and the chat has definitely shown up already. Real quick, okay, so so nuclear war then? Question mark. And what's up with Washington? Question mark. So two questions that we're going to try to answer today. I'm sure we won't get good answers, or at least not answers that we're satisfied with. But that's where we are. This is the Council on Future Conflict, episode 445. My name is Scott, the proprietor of the Future Conflict channel. And I'm joined by Joe Dolio and a Watcher. Joe, how you doing today, brother?
I am well and good all at the same time. Happy to be back in Montana and looking forward to some more classes we have coming up and other events that are going on and good times, good times. Still recovering from hanging out with these guys all weekend, but good stuff. Good stuff.
A good time around the campfire was drank by all.
There were some cylindrical beverages that were certainly killed. Lots of good whiskeys from various parts of the country. That's one of the best parts is all the different craft whiskeys that we enjoy as a group. So good
Yeah, I
times.
definitely. Sitting there and sipping whiskey is always more fun when you're with other people who appreciate them like you do. So I'm with you there, Joe. And Watcher, I hope you're doing all right today. I know you're not drinking whiskey. I mean, you
No,
being a
no,
good,
yeah, doing great,
a
doing great over
good.
here. Well, okay, so not the best, great though. Oh, am I muted? No,
No,
okay,
you're
we're
good.
good.
I can hear you.
Um, so turns out being a cowboy is not all boots and spurs. What can I say? We lost a bull due to some poor health conditions, and gee, that doesn't feel good. Uh,
What? But how
so
does it taste? That's the better question.
unfortunately, because of the specific health conditions, it tastes a
Bummer.
lot like fungus, out in the woods.
Yeah, bummer.
Um, so uh, uh, yeah, not great, but doing good, and the rest of the herd's doing okay. And goodness gracious, I was having a slow morning, and then suddenly Rumble Chat appeared, coming in
Yeah, so
hot and heavy.
I would just like to say, right? I appreciate a good active chat, but Squishy Hunter, man, you've taken over my damn show, and the show hadn't even started yet. Maybe that's an open. Maybe Squishy Hunter was just providing an opening act.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
just real quick for those on YouTube, if you are not, you don't have to watch the stream on Rumble, but I recommend that you pop the chat out so you can monitor the Rumble chat as well because it is absolutely on fire today. Yes, we're sharing some of Squishy Hunter's short story presented in like conversation, one-sided radio conversation that he's having. So it's pretty fun. Don't spoil it. Make the YouTubers go over there and actually check it out there, Watcher. It's well worth the price of admission over there at Bongino. So
Somebody over there also said, "So what button is Sibley pushing today?" Let me tell you about a development. Since I have asked and everyone has harassed him and harangued him so much, I believe you're going to see that I survived the Russian or the Chinese tank round, and I will appear in the third book. Probably just so he can kill me again in an even more gruesome manner.
he
But
lived. Yeah. Well,
what's
if you don't see the body, then you can make up any, fiction that you want in order to make somebody survive.
yeah, yeah.
Modern medicine is a wonderful thing as long as you're, that golden hour, right? Joe. So
Especially in fiction, it's even better in fiction.
that's what you call plot armor, Joe.
You know, real quick before we move on, I do want to say something, and that is that I don't actually understand this take very much, and I got to say, if you're not giving it a name, you can give it a posthumous pet name. That's fine. I just got to say, I don't get why everybody has such a problem eating, Fluffy or or Bessie. You know what I mean? Like that's no different to me than eating 2 1 2 3. It's the same thing.
Well, you've got a disconnect on the human end of one, but I just don't know which end it is on. You either don't mind eating things that you love, or you don't love it enough. Just because you name it doesn't mean you love it. Right?
I think it's the first, man. What can I say? Everything's got to get eaten.
I mean, you eat your cat, eat your dog, eat your pet cow. I get it. I mean, it's pretty much
either going to get eaten by the bacteria or me.
Well, that was okay. All right, hey guys, we've got a good show today. We're gonna try to we're gonna restructure the main two topics today a little differently, but let me just give you a quick preview before we jump into. Hold on a second. Biggin 599 over on Rumble says for $20 says have some coffee this morning.
Oh damn,
gentlemen! I hope you enjoy your coffee. I will drink some tea, maybe. I don't know. You know what? I could go get a shot of whiskey, I guess.
Well, I'll have some caffeine. It's a Coke Zero, but it is in my Tudor's biscuit roll mug.
Look at that.
Oh, and we've got a member chap. Claybuster has been a member for 31 months, man. That is a long haul. We appreciate you being here with us every step of the way. So the rule of the farm is not to name the food. Yep. I mean, that's pretty much what I've heard too. So
Claybuster, I will say, while not commenting on what you said, because I appreciate you, that your name makes more sense now that you have a profile picture. So,
yeah, the shotgun.
Yes.
All right, let's jump right into it, shall we, guys? Wait a second. I was going to preview the stuff just so you know what we're going to be talking about today on our two topics. So, if you haven't heard, Joe Biden has declared war on Russia via his Ukrainian allies. And Putin has already promised that if we hit them, if Ukraine hits them with us or with our weapons, it's the same as us doing it to them. Ergo, we are now at war because we have already hit them with ATACMS, via our Ukrainian allies. Joe, this is something we've talked about from day one with this. As far as U.S., it seems like I remember a former gate guard who used to be on here saying, "Oh, they'll never do that. They'll never give them those kind of weapons. They'll never do." And then yet here we are.
Hey, listen, he has moved on from Ukraine. He is ready for war with Iran.
So. Well, evidently Iran's not ready for war with us, though, based on our story from Monday. I haven't heard any follow-up on that, by the way. But we also have a story about that is related. Hold on. Yeah, that's
if
related.
Any of that turns out to be true, it could actually raise the risk, not lower it. So
that's true. So yeah, I mean, essentially, we're going to be talking about this idea that we're blithely whistling past the graveyard as we hop, skip, and jump right into potentially World War III, with our allowing the use of long-range missile systems into Russian territory proper. Not one of the smartest decisions, I think, and we'll go into this in more detail in segment one. Joe,
yes, Sciatica. I think you're right on that. So,
I think there's something to be said behind this. I gotta feel like Trump's team is probably already talking at some level with the Russians to kind of potentially forestall this. But I don't know where that what is it, the Logan Act or something like that, where private diplomacy is
I'm going to be honest, despite them using it to target and frame and entrap General Flynn, the incoming administration has a certain amount of ability to do that. I don't think it applies to them. So,
Yeah, I wonder about that, right? Because it is the transition team. It is I gotta figure you're 100% on that. So I wasn't quite sure, but you got to remember we're not dealing with you know people that are all there when we're talking about the modern left. So all right. The other topic where we talk about is it's what's up with Washington, and essentially we're talking about a lot of the confirmation stuff and all the absolute wailing and gnashing of teeth that's going on over Trump's picks, and we'll be going over that in a little more depth. But we'll be doing that over on Bongino's because that could get spicy as far as political stuff, and we are not trying to cause trouble over on YouTube for no good reason. So that will be at the end of segment one. We'll switch over to Bongino's for that, and we'll finish up over there. And we'll get into, Joe, there's some interesting stuff happening around all of the absolute heads that are exploding over some of the picks. I think there's also some kind of dirty games going on with the, Republican congressmen that are trying to get their preferred picks in the lineup. So we can talk about that a little bit later. Any thoughts on that?
Yes, I thought we were going to talk about it later.
Well, yeah, just a little preview for those who haven't.
I'm confused right now, but okay, all right. No, none really. I haven't really paid much attention to the appointments because we have to get there first.
Yeah, right on. And I think there's some of the stuff with the appointments may give people a kind of an opportunity to do something stupid potentially.
Yeah, the appointments are just driving up the anger. So
yeah, because let's be honest, his appointments have not been very conciliatory. These are definitely pretty spicy appointments. So we'll talk more about that later, though. Guys, let's jump right into the first odds and ends here. This may sound familiar to some. I don't know where I've heard something like this before, but evidently Jews and homosexuals are no longer safe in Berlin, warns the city's police chief. I wonder if that's a warning that was put out in 1937.
I would say, is this a new news story or is this 1937? I mean,
right.
It seems I recall a time when this was true and it didn't go well.
In a wide-ranging interview with Berlin Zeitung about security risk, anti-Semitic danger zones in Berlin, and the effects of austerity measures on police work, Slowick warned the German capital has become less tolerant in areas with high Arab populations. No, I thought these were all tolerant, rural scholars, on education visas, coming over to Germany to learn the language and understand the culture.
Yeah, they're all peaceful folks just looking for a better life.
Mostly peaceful rapists. I probably can't say that word on YouTube. While she maintained that Berlin is as safe as many other cities in Germany and safer than some other European capitals, basically there are no-go areas, she said. However, there are areas, and we have to be honest at this point, where I would advise people who wear a yarmulke or are openly gay or lesbian to be careful. She also pointed out neighborhoods with large Arab populations as a particular concern. Unfortunately, there are certain neighborhoods where the majority of the people of Arab origin live who have sympathies for terrorist groups, she explained. Open anti-Semitism is expressed there against people of the Jewish faith and origin. We have initiated over 6,200 investigations since 2023. The irony here, Joe, is this is the first time I can ever remember one of these countries actually saying that they may have a problem with that population set. That they let in.
Plain Nut hits it right over in the Rumble chat. They are learning German culture, just not the modern one. Beautiful. Well done. What's funny is the West collectively feels this need to be virtuous, and it makes them feel good to let all these people in, they never really considered if there would be a downside to it. And there sure is.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what we've seen in England and in other places in Europe in the past is they'll say, "Oh yeah, murders are up." Well, can we see the ethnic breakdown of victims and perpetrators? Oh no. No, we
No.
don't do that.
That would be racist to share.
Yeah. Yeah. We can't that may bring about some sort of prejudice against some perceived no, ne'er-do-wells, right?
Hey, Steve in the chat on YouTube. Let me just say, not only were there plenty of people warning about it for years, but they've jailed Tommy Robinson for factually reporting on it for years.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, this is exactly Tommy Robinson, and specifically for England, has been absolutely ahead of the power curve on this one. She added that, however, that 1,300 of these investigations involved violent crimes, many of which were directed at police officers during protests and public gatherings. I'm very concerned that people from the Jewish Israeli community in Berlin are aware of the total number of anti-Semitic crimes, and this increases their fear of becoming a target of attack. Various organizations have been registering meetings regularly since October 7th last year. Sometimes there is hysterical chanting and slogans that are difficult for the majority of society to hear, but all of this is allowed on German roads. The irony here, Joe, is that you can't say Nazi stuff, but you can literally be a Nazi and, or at least have the viewpoints that the Nazis held. You just can't like wave a swastika flag or say,
I was going to say, Scott, the proper term is Islamofascist.
Oh, well, anyway, but you see what I'm saying? Like literally you can be a Nazi, but you just can't be a Nazi.
yes, you have to be the right kind.
That's right. Yeah, we don't have problems with their views. We just have a problem with their symbols and their fashion sense, right?
Yep.
When asked whether hardcore demonstrators would could be quantified, Slowick said that we had over 360 meetings. A large proportion were loud. We are registering people in the low 3-digit range who commit crimes at gatherings. However, as police, we regularly supervise and accompany meetings with thousands of participants who have behaved largely peacefully, mostly peaceful. Joe, I mean, we knew that was going to show up eventually.
Yeah, largely peaceful. That's an interesting term. Yeah.
Talk about doublespeak, right? When we have a riot, and she also doesn't say riot either. She's saying protest that's largely peaceful. Well, okay, it's a riot then. Let's see. Depleted police force is struggling financially. She said, for years, the police have only been equipped in such a way that funds are usually spent in the fall, and then we have to juggle our way until the end of the year and find leftovers to finance fuel or to pay support staff for large locations. It's almost like, Joe, they have budgeted their police as if their people are German and act like Germans, right? But when their people act like savages, then all of a sudden the police run out of budget. It's like they're not budgeting for this problem. Like, they don't want to be racist in their budgeting, I guess.
I guess.
I'd like to point out an alternate theory, an interesting and alternate theory for this. Gee, it's almost as if many of these attacks seem to consistently happen during a particular time of year when a major Christian holiday happens. And weirdly, the police seem to spend out all the funding they have available just before that. Weird.
It's crazy. You can't say that, Watcher.
Well, so Crockpot Broccoli says Nazi stuff under the crescent moon is fine, just don't fly that sun wheel. And Jay Clark says the sun wheel is fine if it's backed by blue and gold, according to the media and the powers that be.
Yes, that's 100% factual.
Yeah, yes.
Sad part is it's not a joke. Yeah, I mean it's funny, but it's not actually a joke.
Yeah, it's just straight reporting facts.
Here's my question. How quickly before this police spokesperson or official or whatever, how quickly before she is fired? for being. Sounds way too, I guess, candid for Europe's taste.
Yeah, it does sound way too honest. I don't know.
Peter says helicopter tours for $2 over on Rumble says, speaking of intolerance, is there a process to make it known to the UK that it's not safe for any of UK law enforcement to travel to the US? Speaking of traveling to the US, go ahead.
Personally, I say, why warn the bastards?
Well, Jay Clark says, in visa waiver and bar UK law enforcement from getting visas. Technically, wouldn't need to end visa waivers, but a good idea anyway. Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I think in this kind of brave new world where all these countries that were supposedly our allies in the past have let in people who hate not only them, but us, I think we need to start looking at maybe we don't give automatic visas to every one of these damn countries.
Automatic visas, bro. I say, why don't we use the exact same frame and infrastructure we've used for people who suppress the rights of their people all over the world? I think, like, legitimately, hey, you were the head of police in London and started arresting people merely for going out and speaking their voice about 3 girls getting murdered. Yeah, no, you're on an international Interpol list. If you go anywhere near a fucking airport, we're going to gank you, and then you're going to go straight to Guantanamo.
Yeah, I mean, visas are there for a reason. Maybe we should make people from Germany and England and places where they've got shoddy border control. You got to prove you have a good reason, and you're not a crackpot to come to our country. And if they do the same thing to us, then great. I don't care. I mean, I'm not looking to travel to Europe anytime in the near future anyway.
I was gonna say, what will I ever do if the shitlib from my local high school is no longer allowed to go over to Europe and then come back with a fake accent, pretending how much better she is than the rest of us? Weird.
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's be honest. Nobody needs to go to Europe. I mean, people may want to go to Europe, but and none of us. I think none of us care about even going to Europe. But I mean, I don't want to speak for anybody else, but that's how I feel. Laura says, hang on, if the government is giving illegals phone, why wouldn't the new administration not be able to track them? Hell, they spy on all of us. Well, I mean,
no. So personally, I also like Eagle Rays right below that, which is our relationship with the UK should be the same as with North Korea, and for the same reasons. No, seriously, like, play dictator games, win dictator prizes.
Let's be honest. If they change their tune and the government, takes power and gives power back to the people, then we can change our policy. But if they're going to have a dictatorship essentially of the left in the UK that thinks it's a-okay to just insult our president, then they pay the price, and you can't, I hate to say it, but when you treat a state as a state, then unfortunately the good people in the UK would suffer as well. But hopefully that helps them put pressure on their government to change their behavior.
Yeah, I'll be really honest. Like, I don't care about you. This is very much like the Islams, and like, oh, you can't draw pictures of our prophets. Like, your prophet's strong enough to take care of himself. Donald Trump is strong enough to take a few insults and roll the punches. I'm looking at them literally instituting kulakization and trying to kill off the human farmer. That's way more of an issue for me than, oh, that orange man, he's so bad.
All right, let's move on to the next story, shall we? Now, guys, we've been talking about this a lot in the back room, and also I've seen a lot of stuff about this on X. Right before so this is the story of the Russian captain Chinese ship that was, cutting those undersea cables. It has been seized by the Danish Navy. So this is interesting, Joe, that they actually took action against this ship, because in the past we've seen this happen, but then it's like, oh, it was an accident, and they just kind of let these ships go about.
Well, this ship did some very specific and incredibly odd unexplainable maneuvering at the same time that the cuts were the cables were cut, and this maneuvering was done directly over the cables.
Well,
So
it was two cables, right? It was basically
yeah,
where two cables cross, and it drug its anchor, and then basically did a circle over where the two cables cross, right?
yes, and the crazy thing is we were able to track and intercept this ship in real time, but no one was able to track and intercept the Phantom yacht from Ukraine. Never mind that there's no water border from Ukraine to the Baltic Sea that did the other deed in that area. Crazy.
Yeah. Let's see. This
Yeah.
is a news site that I've never used before, but I thought this. I read the story and it seemed to track
This
it.
is an area of ocean too that the Danish Marines have been boarding ships since around the 700s. But
I was gonna say, yeah, they went Viking. Let's see. On November 19th, so yesterday, the Chinese vessel Yi Peng, captained by a Russian officer, was intercepted and boarded by Danish Navy vessel after it was linked to the destruction of two critical undersea telecom cables in the Baltic Sea. And so that report comes from ViceGrid over in X. These cables connected Finland to Germany and Sweden to Lithuania. The incident raised immediate suspicion of intentional sabotage. Yiping 3 had left a Russian port before the attack and was being closely tracked by Danish naval forces as it attempted to flee the region. The situation mirrors last year's controversy surrounding the New Polar Bear, a Chinese ship that damaged the Baltic Connect gas pipeline. The alarm was first raised when Riordan Coles, a Latvian member of European Parliament, took to social media urging action over the suspected sabotage. In his post, Coles warned of the growing risk posed by such incidents, highlighted the potential for state-backed hybrid warfare designed to destabilize Europe's infrastructure. Now, this is interesting, Joe. I mean, this is if okay, so this guy's a Russian, pilot, or not pilot, but captain of the ship. It's a Chinese-owned vessel, is my understanding. So there's a couple different ways this could be, kind of interpreted. What's your take on this, just from first blush? I mean, I can't imagine this is an independent action.
well, we were talking about this over on Tactical Wisdom Locals before it was cool. We were monitoring this in real time. I think that a lot more of this goes on than we know about. We're just finally putting them out in the news and having people pay attention to it. I think that China has had a program of doing this for some time. The biggest area where they can do it would be in the Pacific, and that was probably after reading a Tom Clancy novel. What was the title of that one? Dead of Honor, where the Japanese cut all the cables from Guam, the Philippines, and Saipan as Japan reacquired those islands. So it's actually not that hard. I know that Karen O is asking how it doesn't seem as though she believes this could happen. Anchor chains are very, very long, and the Baltic is not very deep. You have to think about this. We were able to lay that cable, so someone's able to reach that bottom. You just got to have the right gear with you to do it. So, yeah, it's possible. They just have to have a really long anchor chain or a purpose-made device for it. We're assuming that it was the anchor that was used. Could have been anything. So, you're muted, Scott.
The average depth of the Baltic Sea is only around 55 meters. So, I mean, if this is one of those areas where it's, that's easily within range of an anchor. Even the maximum depth is only 459 meters. So, I mean, yeah, you're right. This is absolutely doable with something like an anchor, especially when you've got the mast that you have in one of these bulk cargo carriers dragging that anchor. It would literally snap those telecom cables. It would drag them first, but then it would, after a little bit, it gives, and then it would just snap right through them. So it's very plausible, without special equipment, I think. All right. Let me jump back into the story. So whether by China or by Russia, if these are carried out on orders of China or Russia, it represents an escalating threat to European security. And he says, so here's the problem, right? Okay, so he is right. That is correct. This is an overt action against Europe by either Russia or China. I can't imagine any other country is involved. That being said, this is the problem, right? Rather than kind of confronting them head on and actually just kind of, hey, what the hell's going on here? Actually talking to them, they want to go over the top with this, right? He says counter actions are overdue. Okay, this is great. You're a Lithuanian politician. What counter actions are you going to do?
Well, what Lithuania means is the United States should do something.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Exactly right. You went right where I was going with that one, Joe.
Yeah, I mean, that's clear. There's nothing they can do about it. So let me see what my big brother friend can do.
In fairness, the Danish Navy did exactly the right thing. I mean, the problem is in the past when this has happened, and I think you're right, Joe. This has happened in previous years. The problem is just nobody ever did much about it, right? Or if they did something about it, they didn't make a big deal about it. But the Danish Navy shadowing and then seizing that ship would actually make sense. And I'll be honest with you, I think the affected countries should stake a claim on that ship and essentially say, well, you guys did the damage to our line. We're going to take the ship that did it. We're going to try the responsible parties on board the ship, and then we're going to seize the ship and sell it at auction, to pay for restitution, or if it's underwritten by, Lloyd's or somebody like that, force Lloyd's to pay for it.
I'll be honest. The fact that they did board this ship is a big step in the right direction.
Right.
I can certainly see them boarding it, but boarding it and seizing it and taking it back to a Danish port tells me that they found something on board when they searched it that made them decide, yep, this is definitely a spy ship and they need to be taken in. So there has to be something.
Some suspicious communications gear or something along those lines. Yeah. So anyway, this is an interesting story here. I think we're going to see more come out about this. It'll be interesting to see where this goes, and if there are any comments by either China or Russia on this. It's a really weird, kind of aligning with a Chinese ship but a Russian captain, right, Joe? I mean, that's kind of a.
Well, actually, no, it's actually not all that unusual. If you deal in international shipping, Russian and Ukrainian ship captains are pretty common, along with Chinese and Filipino crews. I don't know. I don't find it all that unusual. It's got a Russian captain on a Chinese ship.
I'm sorry, Joe. Watcher, if you could go down further in the story, there's a tweet by H.I. Sutton. Yeah, there it is. Pull that tweet up. So he says here, update, photo circulating of the new, new Polar Bear, the ship suspected of cutting the Baltic Connector gas pipeline and 2 communications cables with its anchor. Everybody is looking at the missing anchor. However, look at the containers. And so you can see those containers that have been tilted over. So clearly that's been probably some, when it got hung, it probably, yawed the ship to the, the starboard? Right is starboard.
Yes.
But
I got it right. First
But yes, it caused the ship to yaw. And then that probably snapped cables, which displaced containers, and there's probably a few that went overboard.
So yeah, this is I mean, I think it's clearly obvious that this is what's happened. Now, what they'll say is, oh, there was a malfunction and the anchor, both anchors let go, and we couldn't do anything about it. Just drag the anchors. Seems to me, Joe, if your anchors failed like that, and you would just halt the ship, right?
Well, how are you going to halt the ship if you don't have any anchors?
Well, then that's what I'm saying, right? The anchors go down, they start
You could hit
dragging
all
the
stop
bottom.
and all back, but that's probably still going to do some damage. The point is, there's no plausible explanation for what happened,
Right.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, I that's what I was getting at is the fact that there doesn't seem to be an explanation that makes any sense, especially when you look at that track, because it basically did the big, curly Q around that area, and it just happened to be right over where those two cables intersected. So,
And as far as people saying reverse the engines, Laura, this thing does not stop on a dime, and reversing the engines is still going to take quite a while.
yeah, we're talking a matter of miles, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
Anyway, definitely interesting developments between our NATO allies infrastructure and the Russians and the Chinese. I'm sure we'll be seeing more to follow on this. The only thing that would be really suspicious to me, Joe, is if you basically saw a kind of, if it goes totally quiet on with this story, and it kind of it just disappears, right? There's no follow up. This should be a big story because of the seizure, but we'll see. All right, jump into our next odds and ends, shall we, gentlemen? Netanyahu signals rejection of Lebanon truce. Israel will continue to operate against Hezbollah. So, I mean, this is not unexpected to me. Just from first blush on this headline, anything. Joe? What do you think the end state for Israel is? With the Hezbollah operation, do you think they're terrain focused or are they more enemy focused?
That's more enemy focused. And here's the deal: as unpopular as it is to say, and I know that it's not Monday, but tell me where he's morally wrong here. Hezbollah exists for the destruction of Israel, and you want him to make peace with it. That's not compatible. That's not a long-term strategy. So,
yeah, and the Hezbollah wanting peace at this point doesn't surprise me because essentially Israel's tanning that ass. And yeah, when you're getting your ass kicked, you want the other guy to stop beating on you. But Israel's decided they're tired of basically enduring Hezbollah's BS, and they've decided to, essentially take away the capabilities to continue to strike Israel. And I don't, like you said, Joe, I don't think that there's anything wrong with them continuing to do that. Okay, the story here says Lebanon and Hezbollah have agreed to a U.S. proposal for a ceasefire with Israel, with some comments on the content. A top Lebanese official told Reuters on Monday, describing the effort as the most serious yet to ending the fighting. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu's initial reaction was to say Israel will still operate military against Hezbollah in response to the attack.
Well, that actually makes sense because the U.S. and Lebanon can't negotiate a truce without involving Hezbollah.
Right.
And what they're trying to do is pay to win is saying, look, we got a truce and Israel broke it. Well, if Hezbollah was never a party to that truce, it was not really a legitimate truce.
Yeah.
They're not there fighting the Lebanese government. They're there fighting Hezbollah.
Well, the irony is, Joe, is even if Hezbollah wanted a truce right now, I don't think Israel would give them one, even if, they went straight to the man. I think that Netanyahu would say, pound sand, I'll give you, don't call me, I'll call you.
We used to have a policy in the U.S. That said we don't negotiate with
Negotiate,
terrorists.
yeah.
I don't know where that went or why.
I mean, you got to remember though, this is one of those strange things that's happening all of a sudden right before the inauguration. It's almost like they're trying to get a win out of this before, so the new incoming president can't take credit for it if he, once the peace happens. It says Netanyahu says the most important thing is not the deal that will be laid on paper. We will be forced to ensure our security in the north of Israel and systemically carry out operations against Hezbollah's attacks, even after a ceasefire. And he's not wrong there. There's no way in hell Hezbollah doesn't break the ceasefire. And if Hezbollah attacks Israel, they must respond. Even if there's a piece of paper settling an agreement, worthy though it may be, we will be required, in order to ensure our security in the north, to systematically carry out operations, not only get Hezbollah's attacks, which could come, even if there is a ceasefire, nobody can guarantee it will hold. It's not only our reaction, a preventive reaction, a reaction in the wake of attack, but it's also the capacity to prevent Hezbollah from strengthening. We will not allow Hezbollah to return to a state it was in October 6, 2023. Yeah, that's the idea that, their ability to generate power, right? To, force generation capabilities, and this could be as minor as training fighters, at training camps. Israel's basically saying they're going to take that away. But I also think they mean to add more significant capabilities like missiles and rockets and things like that.
Yeah.
U.S. Special Envoy Amos Hochstein in Lebanon on Tuesday, where he described very productive meetings with top Lebanese officials. Once again, not Hezbollah officials. He says the deal to end the fighting is within our grasp. No, it's not, because you're not dealing directly with Hezbollah. The skepticism expressed by Netanyahu is rooted in the long-running demand that Hezbollah withdraw its forces to regions north of the Litani River in order to establish an indefinite buffer zone. Israel also wants its military to be able to patrol the southern Lebanon after that point to ensure no continued missile or drone attacks from northern Israel. I think that's, given where they've been for the last, couple of years, I think that's not unreasonable for Israel. And let's be honest, Joe, a lot of people are going to have hard feelings after all these heavy attacks by Israel. So, I mean, in fairness, there will be a lot of people who want to kind of strike back, in revenge, and might be willing to bide their time.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think you're wrong there.
Watcher, you got any thoughts on this before we move on? Nothing heard.
Oh, there we go.
There we go.
Not anything hyper intelligent, but we've not yet seen the end of this, and I'm just waiting for more developments. I think much will be told by when Trump officially starts having meetings again, and the tone and pace of the war after that happens. So I'm very curious, but I suspect that kind of the wink wink nod nod, nobody actually said this but everybody kind of understands it thing is that the more damage right now Israel can do to any of the parties they are aggrieved against in the area, the better, because then Trump can say it wasn't his fault, and then that gives him leverage and negotiating room when he comes in. But I don't know, maybe that's a little cynical.
Well, watch for cynical, never. All right, let's jump into this next story. Joe, I included this story in here not because I think this is a worthwhile read and that everybody should go right out and check this guy's opinions out. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I don't know that we're going to need to get much past the maybe the first couple paragraphs on this, because
Yeah.
I just want to show the people. Now, this guy is a UK dude. This is a UK paper, and this is
That's a long way to say communist.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm just talking about location at this point. He's not even a communist in America, right? So it's not somebody who would directly affect you. But I want to see when they take the mask off. I mean, they're really taking the mask all the way off these days, because you're absolutely right, Joe. I mean, you couldn't be more Marxists than what this guy is. He's basically saying, white farmers out in the hinterboonies have too much farmland. They're hoarding the farmland, and we need to enact a scheme that allows us to seize their farmland and turn it over to more deserving, i.e. diverse populations. Joe, there was another English country that did this, and I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, well, two actually, right? One
Two,
did it.
right.
One is in the process of doing it.
Well, Rhodesia was it was an English country. I mean, literally, they were, whereas the Boers are more Dutch, but there were English there in South Africa too.
Let's be honest. What was Zimbabwe called? I mean, Zambia called before it was called Zambia. Anybody?
I don't remember that one.
North Rhodesia.
Oh yeah. I always thought that was just part of Rhodesia.
No, Zambia was North Rhodesia, and then Rhodesia was Rhodesia.
What year did Zambia become Zambia?
A while. I don't know the actual year.
I'd be interested.
I can look it up.
Yeah, it's fine. I'm just kind of curious. I'm sure somebody in the chat will let us know. All right, so let me read this headline and kind of, give the full mask off treatment to this guy. This guy's name, by the way, is Will Hutton. Not that he's worth or anything, but ultimately, it's always nice to say the name of communists in the public eye. Farmers have hoarded land for too long. Inheritance tax will bring new life to rural
1964, by the way.
1964 is when it became so way before the besoiling of Rhodesia. Okay.
Yes.
Prices and rents will fall under Rachel Reeves' plan, enabling a younger generation with new ideas to enter the field, i.e. people have no idea what the fuck they're doing. And the ones that are younger, so I go back to like Clarkson's farm with this, because that's my connection point to British farming. The young farmer in that one is, he's actually way more competent than Jeremy is. What is his name?
Caleb.
Right? Caleb, that's right. And he's not the guy they want to start farming, right? They don't want young farmers like him. They want young farmers that live in London right now and probably have Muslim or Indian last names to become farmers. All right, I'm just going to read the first two paragraphs on this, because this is absolutely nauseating. One of the baleful, I love this kind of language, right? Baleful dimensions of our times is the way that the conversation about what constitutes the good society is framed by the rich and their interests. A conception of the common good withers. Instead, it is replaced by the existential importance of private wealth. I mean, by the way, this is exactly the reason why private universities are absolutely destroying the minds of their students. Nowhere is it more exposed than the debate over taxation, and in particular the taxation of inherited wealth. As the debate over the past fortnight has dramatized, 500,000 people die every year. Under the reforms of the inheritance tax, relief on agricultural land proposed in budget, about 500 individuals who inherited land worth more than $2 million will join the rest of society and have their inheritance tax levied on their bequest, albeit at half the rate, with an enlarged exemption and 10 years to pay it. Concessions are not made to the rest of us. How fortunate and privileged are they? Well, the reason why is because this is not wealth, right? It's the land.
Well, hold on. I feel that we can't preempt. I mean, there is a proper and official response to this, and it must be said and made every time available. We bring you now.
Can't
No
hear it.
audio.
Oh no. Let's see.
Sounds like some fucking commie gobbledygook.
Thank you.
That's true. Here's the thing: as soon as you start talking about the rich, you know it's communist nonsense, and it's all about envy and hatred and class hatred, and that's the biggest piece of it.
Well,
As Joshua Clark says, inheritance taxes are just an abomination anyway. I was taxed on the money when I made it. I was taxed on those things when I bought it. I was taxed on the land annually. Do you really need to be taxing dead people? It's absolutely crazy.
yeah. The other half of this insanity is that, look, they're going to turn these over to. It's not like they are interested in getting the people. Scott, you were talking about farming, but not in the context of owning the farms. No. They want all of these farms combined into giant multilateral agribusinesses. The types that are sweeping through the American plains and taking up all of our productive land as well. And for the same reason, because they are much easier to control, and to control the people, you control the food supply. Britain is a small island, and it would struggle even in the best of times to produce all of its own food. But this decision also ensures that they are now fully at the whims of the international market, which Britain has been attempting to step away from.
I shared so to get the other side of this point of view, I've dropped a link, and because Jezza had a speech at the big farm protest, I think it was the day before yesterday, and I thought this was really good. So it's 3 minutes long, so I'll give him his piece.
Okay, so as we all know, everyone down there, a tractor, £200,000 for a medium-sized one. A combine, £500,000. All the equipment costs a fortune. And if you try to price what you're selling to accommodate that, there's just a lot of moaning. You get people saying, well, I shouldn't pay that. I can get a chicken from abroad. Yeah, you can. But it's so full of chlorine, it tastes like a swimming pool with a beak. And then you've got the environmentalists endlessly shouting at you. Oh, your cows, they're altering the composition of the gases in the upper atmosphere, and your fertilizers ruining the trouty freshness of our streams and rivers. And I know sometimes you just think, what's the point? We're just trying to make breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and it's just this endless whinging, and there's no money in it. And the regulations. Some of you down there will know what I'm on about when I say we got a lot of GS4 this year on the farm. And we were told, oh, the sheep will love that. No, they don't. They're standing looking at it in the same way that a 5-year-old looks at an olive. They don't want to eat it. And so we have all of this complication and all of this cost. And there's very, very little money in it. Very little money, as you know. And then we got the budget. Now, I know a lot of people all across the country in all walks of life took a bit of a kick on the shin with that budget. You lot got a knee in the nuts and a light hammer blow to the back of the head. Because we had pickup trucks, double cab pickup trucks, being reclassified as company cars. 211% tax rise there. £50 carbon tax on a bag of fertilizer. The basic farm payments altered in such a way that we're getting a lot less than we thought we were going to get. And then there was the inheritance tax business. Honestly, I don't know where to start. I know you've heard a lot about it today, and I'm not going to dwell on that. I will just say this. Rachel Reeves has told us, what is it, 72%? 72% of farms are going to be unaffected by this. I've just been interviewed by Victoria Derbyshire for Newsnight. let's see if we can educate her here, if she's still around, Victoria. How many people here, if you'd raise your hands, are from a family farm? I want to see, right. I hope you can see that. I hope we've got our cameras from the show up high to see. That's a lot of hands. Now, keep them up, and I want you to lower them if you think, and you've had time to work this out, you think you're going to be unaffected by the changes to APR and BPR. Put your hands down if you're going to be unaffected. Thank you. My case rests. I want Newsnight to see that. She was trotting out. Nobody's affected. Rachel Reeves says so. Since when was the BBC the mouthpiece of this infernal government?
The funny thing here is that it's not just this inheritance tax, right? It's literally an attack at every turn for these UK farmers. Now, is it existential for them to be able to grow their own food? I don't know. I mean, UK is a pretty rich country. They can source material, food from overseas. But let's be honest, every country should be able to grow its own food. I mean, that's the most basic thing ever.
Yeah.
So even though you can make the argument that they don't need to be productive farms, I totally disagree. And this kind of, Joe, this goes to the same thing that keeps us from making all of our steel, for the defense industry in the U.S., right? I mean, there are certain capabilities that a nation should foster within its borders, and not be, to the extent that you stop being able to take care of yourself, you essentially give up your sovereignty.
Correct.
I mean, I don't want to go too far down. I'll let you guys kind of say your piece on this, because it's a bigger issue than just farmers in England. So I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I just think you're right. I think that there's not much good to come of this. Continually hammering down on the farmers. Jared Diamond, in his classic book, Germs, Guns, and Seals, pointed out that the number one thing that led to whether or not a particular society survived and advanced or remained backwards and whatnot was the ability to grow and store food. And that right there is absolutely true. And if you start hammering away at the farmers, you lose that ability to grow and store food. And therefore your society will go backwards and devolve, much as we have seen happen in Rhodesia and Zambia, or Zimbabwe and Zambia. So, see, I can't even bring myself to say Zimbabwe.
Right. Yeah, I mean, ever since I learned about what the ZANU PF was, I just hearing that name just makes me a little sick to the stomach.
Well, I've actually got I need to find it. Hold on. It shouldn't take more than a minute. Right. So I when I heard of this, I thought up a little solution. It's one of those two birds, one stone things. Here's how I think this should be properly responded to. I'm of the firm opinion that Russia should be told all of the details of the UK's involvement in the Ukrainian war, and as a show of good faith, we allow them to drop a nuke directly on London. Thus, we free the British people and simultaneously satiate the Russian need for retribution.
Yes, and we shouldn't allow any of the civic leaders in London to escape. Yes, I'm not. I that's a fictional comment, actually. Nobody's calling for death in London, but
no, I agree.
No, Watcher is, of course, making a cynical and sarcastic remark with that tweet. But the point is that, I mean, when they take the mask off, they take it all the way off, right? And with this inheritance tax, it's the monster, the neo-Marxist monster within the UK is fully baring its teeth and showing everybody what it's made of. So
Yes.
when they tell you who they are, believe them. All right, guys, that's about all I've got on this one. I think it's about time we get ready to go into the main segment. But first, let's talk a little bit about tactical-wisdom.com. Joe, you had a pretty successful weekend. You want to talk about that and other trainings in the near future, or other things that you've got going on?
Yeah, I don't know that we've got much going on in the future. It's wintertime. We're slowing down. We had 11 people come out for community security ops this weekend, so pretty darn good. We were able to run a couple of good-sized squads out there operating against each other. But funny story, in the middle of it, there's Zeus, the dog who lives there. He was out with me in the woods as my spotter, and while one team was hiding, waiting for the other team to come along, Zeus sprinted forward from me and went and identified where every single person was hiding in their very well thought out and very well hidden fighting position. I'm like, Zeus, you're not helping, bro. Come on, get back here. But we did have some fun with that. The only real injury over the weekend was me when I tripped and fell on some rocks, but that's okay. We did all right. What I have coming up is here at Camp Ponderosa in January. We have Kay from Combat Studies Group coming out and doing Ground Rod Level 2. A little more internet privacy and security and phone security stuff. We talk a little Bitcoin. We talk a little Linux builds. We talk a lot about all kinds of cool stuff, Calyx OS phones and all that good jazz, and how to build some digital tradecraft. So that is coming up. I'm probably going to throw a knife and stick class the day before. So if guys come up, they can get in a little bit of extra training. And then the big one to plan for is mid-May. Matt, NC Scout, is coming out here to do a week of classes, and I'm going to throw classes around the beginning and end. And we're going to try to drag some of our other friends out, like Kay or Tony from Wyoming Survival and some of the other trainers, and do things. I know last May we had Clay Martin come on out for a day or two. Mike Bennett dropped by. You never know who's going to show up and just say hi. So be watching for that.
Speaking of tradecraft, Blaine Pardo, welcome, brother. How are you doing?
He is
I'm
in
good.
the house.
I thought I'd pop in for a couple minutes.
Blaine, how's life treating you? Did I read it right the other day? You're either getting ready to finish or you just finished a new book, a first draft.
I finished the bulk of the writing on book 9.
Oh man, that's awesome! I know people are pretty jazzed about book 8. I saw several people in the comments to our recent post about the Indiegogo project referring to book 8. So I thought that was very cool.
Yeah, I'm having a good time. I just thought I'd pop in because I think you guys are talking about nuclear holocaust, and I'm all about that.
We are absolutely going to do that. Joe, thanks. We'll make sure if you guys haven't done it already, go check out tactical-wisdom.com. And also join Joe's locals. You know, if you like what Joe has to say, he says it early and often, and usually first over on locals. So that's the place to be.
That's true.
Watcher has shared my favorite meme of the day to bring us into the next topic here. When you're laughing at World War III memes and suddenly the sun comes out at 3 a.m. Yeah, it sucks when that happens. All right, guys. I just want to take the temperature of the room before we jump into anything specific. Give me the odds to the nearest, percentage. What you think the likelihood of a nuclear weapon blowing up in the atmosphere of the world over the next year is, Joe?
0. I think that we're smarter than that. Now, I'm not
God,
saying
right.
we won't. I'm sorry.
I said, God, I hope you're right.
I'm not saying there won't be conventional combat between the powers that be, and there won't be hacks that attack the power grid. but I don't think anyone's really willing to push the Armageddon button. They are willing to push the war button, though.
Oh yeah, Blaine, what's your take?
I agree with Joe. It's 0, but I think this is actually a pretense to Putin using chemical weapons.
Fair.
He set the bar. He set the bar here by saying tactical nukes, and if he comes in with chemical weapons, it actually seems like he scaled back. You're laughing, but I'm dead serious. Putin's
No, I'm sorry.
chemical weapons on his own people, man.
You're absolutely right, and I shouldn't laugh at that. The problem is you said that when Joe typed this.
Oh.
And of course,
Laura knows what
Joe's
she
being
did.
hectored
She
in
knows
the
what she
chat
did.
as to when book 6 is coming out. We don't talk about book 6 here. All right.
Right.
No, I think you're right, Blaine. I think that when you say nuke, you may kind of dial it down to something else, right? And chemical weapons is the nice, friendly, localized threat that you can kill 100 people with, and it scares the living crap out of people.
If he deploys chemical weapons on any front, it changes the whole nature of the warfare, and there's not a lot the United States can do to counter at that point.
Yeah,
it's
what?
And we just have to sit back and let the Ukrainians take it, because we're so stupid by remaining in this stupid war.
Yeah. Watcher, what's your kind of percentage chance of a nuke going off in the atmosphere in the next year?
Oh boy. Well, let me answer your question with another question. Is it not true that Putin said that if American weapons were used to strike inside Russia, all options were on the table?
I mean, he said that,
Yeah.
So I would probably then rate it in the high 40s.
So okay, so Watcher, you were kind of a wild card there. I wasn't expecting that, but my answer is I think there's a 10% chance that a nuclear weapon goes off in the atmosphere of the Earth. But I think and I'm going to go back to one of my predictions from the beginning of the war, is I think the way Russia does it is it does it a test in like Siberia or one of these kind of locales that they have kind of designated as a munitions test site, and basically to show the fitness of their nuclear arsenal and their willingness to basically buck national pressures in order to show off their willingness to use it. So they get credit for blowing up a nuke, but they also, nobody can say, oh well, you blew up a bunch of women and children with it. So I think that's the most likely thing.
I would like to amend my comment earlier, Scott, and say we've been talking about Russia. No one's talking about Iran. And I think there's a greater chance of Iran
a
nuke.
Pulling a nuke than anything else. And I think it's in what I call this deadly window that we're in right now, where we have a lame duck president, a lame duck administration, no real leadership out of Washington, D.C. whatsoever.
Well,
an impaired president. If there was a time for Iran to drop a nuke, now is the time. It's not going to be when Trump's in office.
Well, and while I agree entirely, I also think there's a third player we should look at. Hey, do you know who China really likes to put up to shit so that they can be their wild junkyard dog is barking at the world? Who happens to be a nuclear armed nation and might just say, well, screw it, we're not doing underground tests anymore.
Yeah.
Now I could put North Korea in the might test above ground, but I'll be honest with you, I doubt it. I think that North Korea doesn't have enough wassa to blow up a nuke and then have to deal with all the crap that they get. Not only from Japan, but when there are different times of the year, you get the wind going directly into Russia and China from. So I think there Russia is the one for me that makes sense, that could actually pull off an above ground test without, directly impacting anybody else. So they would be able to stand to gain the most from above ground test. But I think it's something
I also
interesting.
think
It's
there's
really,
a decent chance that this goes beyond above ground testing. They've said that they're not and the new Russian tactical nuclear doctrine states if they feel like they're being overwhelmed on Russian territory, they're going to nuke it.
No, it doesn't say that. If you actually read his commentary, what he said was would consider. Doesn't mean will. Would consider.
which gives him a lot of leeway, right?
It does.
Right, Joe?
It does.
Yeah. I mean, so let's kind of back it up a little bit, right? So this is why are we talking about nuclear war? Well, the first reason we're talking about nuclear war is because Putin has talked about nuclear war. He's talked about using nuclear weapons. Just like Joe said, he has basically put them on a table for something he would consider if there were direct attacks against Russia with Western weapons, not by Western countries, but with Western weapons. So America gives a missile to Ukraine, and then Ukraine uses said missile against Russia.
It would be real weird if that had just happened or something.
Well, It's just so happens a lot of. So you had a couple days ago, you had the United States president.
In a very weird video.
I liked him wandering around the Amazon aimlessly. Was kind of fun.
Yeah, exactly. He just kind of wanders off in the end of that video. Basically, the president says that he's giving permission for Ukraine to use some of its U.S. or Western-backed weapons because, let's be honest, almost all the weapons that other countries have, like Storm Shadow and Taurus and some of those others, have U.S. components in it. Therefore, can be considered, multinational weapon systems, right? And so basically, Biden lowers the threshold for the use of ATACMS. So that's the specific system that America has given that would have the ability to affect Russia. And the West says for the first time, you can use these ATACMS missiles against Russian targets. And so what do? They immediately use them. And so these are long-range missile fired from like the HIMARS, which is the system that is most widely used by Ukraine that would fire this. And what you're seeing on the screen here are actual reported shots within Russia against I think it's an arsenal. I can't remember exactly what this one was called. This is the Russia's
locals. I said I would expect them to use these in the next 24 to 48 hours, and they did.
Sure enough, Russia's 67th Grau Arsenal, a critical ammunition storage facility in the Bryansk Oblast, sending a fireball soaring hundreds of feet in the air. And then also attack drones were spotted in the area. And so, so we've got other, you could actually hear the bomblets in some of these. Play it with sound so you can kind of. There's your bomblets. Yeah, and that's a close hit that's a hit close to where the people were filming. So those are bomblets. That's the improved conventional munitions that are used with ATACMS. You have ATACMS Unitary, which is a single warhead, which is a single giant warhead, and then you've got the cluster munitions, which are actually the most common variant of ATACMS. I mean, Blaine, it's bad enough that they're using these ATACMS against Russian targets deep within Russia, but they're using cluster munitions as well. I mean, that's theoretically you could call that a weapon of mass destruction.
Yeah, you're starting to play with definitions, and I don't think that's the game in play here.
Yeah.
The bottom line is Putin has said all along, don't do this. Biden decided to let him do it. And why now? I don't know. Other than
I do.
I think the Russians are winning, and there's an era of desperation. I don't think there's a deliberate action to try to undermine Trump. Because I don't think anything coming out of this administration is deliberate. There's no one running this. To me, this was Biden going, here, deal with this escalation, and they knew how Russia was. They think they know how Russia's going to respond, and I will tell you, they're playing with fire. This is not going to be good. Because if I was Putin, I'd say, you know what, I can attack parts of the U.S. power grid. I can go after other stuff, because as long as I don't pull the nuclear trigger, I still look like I'm in control of this situation.
Yeah, I think the reason is to create chaos as the Trump administration comes in. They can say, hey, look, we held the wolves at bay right up until Donald Trump was elected, and then look what happened. The world went to crap. Because no one will remember the timeline and all of that. But I'm old enough to remember, too, when the Russians used cluster munitions, it was evil. But it's somehow virtuous when the Ukrainians do it.
Oh, yeah, it was a war crime. We've often said cluster munitions were war criminal acts, but now it's a patriotic thing.
Now it's cool. IDDN asks in the YouTube, why does using ATACMS cross the line, but Storm Shadow doesn't? Storm Shadow does. Storm Shadows were used exclusively within Ukraine, and Storm Shadows were just released on the same day for use deep within Russia.
By the UK.
By the UK. So the answer is
essentially the use of going by Putin's warning, the use of ATACMS allows him to basically declare war against the United States. And then the use of Storm Shadow would then give him the same ability to do the same thing against the UK, right? And, Blaine, talking about playing with definitions, right? It's our ability to kind of split hairs with, oh, well, we're not war criminals when we do it, but you're a war criminal when you do it. I think, that we may see that kind of word logic game backfire on us, if Russia essentially goes to the BRICS community and say, look at they're using weapons of mass destruction against, this is a war crime against our civilian areas, All you need is one little girl to be killed in one of these strikes, and all of a sudden it's it's a war. It is literally a war crime by our own definitions.
We have become the very thing that we stand against, and we've done it for a corrupt government in Ukraine. We have literally sided with someone that was undesirable for a cause that was unwinnable, and have become our own enemy in this case.
So what do you guys think? Go ahead, Watcher, say that again.
Oh, no, we gazed too long into the abyss.
So I want to play the video by Glenn Beck, because I think what you're starting to see on X kind of coalesce is an idea that this may be illegal, actually, for Biden to have done what he's done. It's on the notes. It's the third link. I want to play this. This is like a 4-minute long video, so we don't have to play the whole thing. Let's listen to the first half and then, or maybe pause at a good point here, because Glenn makes a good point about the case against, the case for calling this a crime, that it could mean impeachment.
So last night, after a day ago, 2 days ago, we finally heard that the president had given Ukraine the go-ahead to use these U.S. long-range missiles at Russia. Ukrainian troops launched an attack against a Russian border region with 6 U.S. long-range missiles. This comes after, again, Putin approved the updated doctrine lowering the threshold for the use of nuclear weapons. How many times has this guy given us a red line and said, don't cross this or it will be World War III? And we've crossed it every single time. For a man who's backed in the corner, a man who is a bloodthirsty killer, you don't keep backing him into a corner. Or what happens? Eventually, he says, I'll have absolutely no credibility, and his people who have just been bombed with U.S. missiles, which he just said 2 days ago, will be an act of war, has got to say, you know what? The worst thing I can do is not act because I'll lose all credibility in my own country and throughout the rest of the world. We have entered a moment of madness. What Joe Biden did is impeachable. Who launches 62 days before you're out of the office? Who starts World War III? By the way, there's a couple of other things you should know. This isn't the only thing going on. There's been a couple of other things. First of all, they cut some telecommunication cables. Who? We don't know, but we suspect the Chinese. The Chinese ship Yi Peng is the main suspect in an investigation now on who cut 2 undersea telecom cables between Finland and Germany. Why would you cut cables between Finland and Germany? Well, if you're going to restore the Soviet Empire, Finland was...
Coggins Phil 431 for $10 says, why not take out a cargo ship full of military equipment headed for Ukraine? I mean,
Well, this is what I'm saying is probably the most likely response. That's kind of my prediction, is we'll see an interdiction of a ship on the high seas. We'll see a plane shot down. We will see some sort of attack on, as Stan calls it, the new Ho Chi Minh Trail, to kind of drive their point home, right?
Or they'll utilize proxies. They'll get the Houthis to do something in the Mediterranean, for example, which there's lots of prime targets there.
Well, Joe, I wouldn't be surprised if you didn't see some random American cargo ship, right? And it could even be a merchant marine ship, something that's actually American flag, maybe carrying, American gear back and forth between one spot, so actually military gear, and it just sinks all of a sudden. There's an explosion and it sinks, in a deep part of the ocean where it's hard to recover the wreckage, right? I mean, without any comment, right? It just disappears. That's the kind of thing that I could see happening here, unattributed attacks.
Entirely possible. But I think they're more likely to start with an actual boarding of a ship and saying why they did it, a very public one.
Yeah, something they could kind of quasi, legitimate, right?
Yes. Yep.
Or they can fund Antifa to make an attack somewhere domestically.
Well, I was going to say also, if they're going to be boarding a ship there, I would not be surprised at all if there were simultaneous action with boarding an American ship bound for Taiwan.
But here's the thing, right? I mean, it's I don't think that a Russia would want to cross the streams and get China involved because China doesn't want to get involved unless it has to. I don't think.
But
I don't know. What do you think, Joe?
Formed a giant economic bloc with military ties.
Well, it's one thing to be economically aligned. It's another thing to drag them kicking and screaming into a war with you.
This is what the Biden administration's been doing, though, and I'll lay it out for people. Every so often, they switch where they're focusing your gaze. So right now, everything's focused on Ukraine. And that's to take your eyes off what's going on in the Middle East. and we still have 7 Americans who are hostages.
Yeah.
And absolutely nothing has been done on the part of the United States administration to get these people back for over a year. I will tell you, this is the kind of crap that took down Jimmy Carter, okay, was a hostage crisis. Biden has artfully dodged it, but he's not going to be able to dodge it much longer because Trump's going to come in and there's going to be one way or another we're getting those hostages back. Right now, they always divert your attention away from the Middle East to the Ukraine. Then when Ukraine gets a little dicey, they divert your attention back to the Middle East. It's the only competent thing that they've been doing is that constant volleyball back and forth of where they're keeping America's gaze.
Yeah, Joe, one of the things potentially that may make sense. So did you see the threat on the U.S. embassy in Kiev? Did you see this?
No.
So the U.S. embassy in Kiev was evacuated because there was a credible direct threat against the U.S. embassy in Kiev. Now, that absolutely makes sense that could become a legitimate target, right? If it's seen
it
as
already
the embassy,
is a legitimate target.
Well, I know, but it hasn't been hit.
A belligerent, a co-belligerent in that war,
right? Yeah, no. You and I agree that has been a legitimate target since day one, essentially. But now I guess Russia's even saying it's a legitimate target. So it'll be just interesting to see. I mean, that would be a big statement if they were.
I think too that we do a lot of embassy evacuations for dramatics and to make a point. We have to attack Russia because we had to evacuate our embassy, whether we actually needed to or not. If that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense. Blaine, when you see something like this, the U.S. embassy in Kiev temporarily closes after attack threat, do you tie these two things together, or because I do? I mean, but
I do, but I also, is this a public relations ploy on the part of the Biden administration? Frankly, we should have closed that embassy down a while ago, to be honest with you, given where it's at, given that missiles and stuff rain down on that city. It's not a viable piece of ground to hold. But I wouldn't rule out the Biden administration doing this just to go, look, Putin's going to do something to us here. They have been playing this up for years. Remember the whole thing of when a missile landed in Russia in Poland, and it was like, oh my God, Putin's attacked Poland. I equate that with this type of stuff where it's like, oh my God, look at what he's going to do. And when nothing happens, we move on to the next thing.
The irony about that Polish missile attack was the fact that it ended up being a Ukrainian surface-to-air missile. So it wasn't even a Russian missile.
Yeah, but that's the first thing lost in all. What's been lost in the entire Ukrainian war is the truth. It was the first victim of the war. We have seen nothing but propaganda, misrepresentations, lies, etc. out of this war. And I remember the Angel of Kiev. They were all like, oh, this is the greatest thing coming and going. But, it was all bullshit. And it still is all bullshit. I don't trust anything when I see stuff like this.
Here's another report. Escalation continues. British Storm Shadow missiles hit Kursk region. Reported that 12 Storm Shadow missiles in the Mariino area were shot down. So I don't know. This is just one of those kind of videos that pop up on X. So it's, it makes sense, based on what the information that's come out of the UK, Yeah, there we go. This is the same thing I'm seeing. Oh, we just lost Watcher. So let me back up. I want to catch two of these super chats here. Peter Shays Helicopter Tours for $2 says, Joe, would you consider doing a Christ knife course. I snagged one from Sai Halud for the upcoming Constitutional Jihad.
So knife courses aren't specific to the knife. Literally any knife, and I'm not going to hold a class for one guy who bought one knife. I'm sorry. But knife skills work for any kind of knife, except, of course, the karambit. And guys who carry a karambit I laugh because you have to have such specific training for one particular knife that you aren't trained to use literally any other knife, and it doesn't make any sense.
Which knife is that again? The karambit? What's that?
That's
The karambit's the
one.
backwards hook.
Oh, yeah, the little cook. Okay, I thought that's what it might
Joshua
be.
Clark, I totally get that it's a Dune reference, but it's the knife from Dune. Yes, I get it, but that's not.
Yeah.
Guys, I know it's a Dune reference. That doesn't change the fact that I don't make one class for that knife.
Yeah. I just want to say karambits, box cutters, and that's pretty much it.
And then Laura Cox clears through all the BS. You should teach a knife class.
No kidding. I teach knife classes all over the country all the time, but I'll actually publicize one. So yes.
And then Peter says helicopter tours for $1 says, didn't we frame Assad for using chemical weapons a decade ago?
Yes.
Ironically enough, we also tried to frame Iraq for transporting chemical weapons into
that's before it was even cool to do, right?
Right. And Watcher.
Because when we didn't find any, we said that's what he did with him. Oh, he gave him to Assad.
That
was good old Dick Cheney.
It's like the self-looking ice cream cone. That's the next war. Well, he gave him to this guy. Let's go get that guy.
So let me ask you this: going back to Glenn Beck's, kind of thing here. We were only about a minute into that video, but essentially he goes into the idea of impeaching Biden. You've got it. You want to go ahead and push?
It's part of that Soviet empire. They've been the ones saying, please stop all this madness. That was cut. Oh, also the telecommunications lines between Sweden and Lithuania. Sweden was an allied. Lithuania was an Axis. Lithuania was under Soviet rule as well. The ship sailed right over the cables when they were cut 8 a.m. on Sunday and 2 a.m. on Monday. Gang, things could be different by lunchtime. Pray for your country. Pray that Vladimir Putin does not strike a NATO country, even with a conventional bomb. Pray that this madman will listen to Donald Trump and realize this is over in 62 days. But then again, the guy wants to collapse the United States of America. As I told you, if Trump wins, one of the things I'm very worried about is terrorism and war. That the left is so insane that they have this, if I can't have you, no one will. That they've been backed into a corner. They have everything riding on it. They've got to bring it down before Trump gets in. It was the worst case scenario.
Let's pause. Joe, that's, he's really just backing up kind of what we've said, right? The most dangerous period is the period we're in right now, when we don't know where it's going to come at us from, but essentially it could literally come at us from anywhere. Nobody benefits by waiting to let Trump take office.
Well, the other part about this is that I disagree with Glenn Beck in the fact that he keeps calling Putin a madman and bloodthirsty. Putin is neither of these things. He's actually pretty stable, pretty solid. And he even alluded to at the beginning that, hey, when Putin says he's going to do something, he does it. And at this point, striking some type of shipping or throwing some sort of a big warning out there that's actually kinetic and causes some damage is probably his next move.
Yeah, and well, the irony is that he goes from Putin to the American left, though, within the same breath. Which he's not wrong. These are both realistic threats to the U.S. But I don't think Russia wants a war with us. So actually, they benefit from just kind of waiting out Biden their time for 2 months, whereas China and the American left, it only gets worse for them after he becomes president. If you look at Alex Jones coverage this morning, it's about impeachment or people drafting articles of impeachment against Biden. And even General Flynn was kind of caught up in this. He said he had a tweet where he said the first thing that they should do is 25th. Basically a 25th Amendment, the president, and then beyond that, they should impeach him, because essentially what he's done is illegal. I just can't get excited about impeaching any president unless it's very clear. And I don't know that what Biden did is illegal, but it sure is stupid.
Well, and you're not going to get an impeachment proceeding done in 62 days.
Yeah.
It's absolutely a ludicrous idea. I do believe that they still want to Article 25 him and drop in or Amendment 25 him and drop in Kamala just to say we did it.
Yeah.
But I don't think this is it.
You know what?
There's apparently something happening in the Senate building right now. Does anyone know what's going on in the Senate building?
I'm not tracking.
I'll look into it.
Look. Keep going, Brilliant.
No, I agree with John. I think impeachments are a waste of time, effort, and energy. You have to have a real serious crime. It was never intended to be this, let's inflict a little pain on the other party. And, they're not going to get anywhere because it's still, Democratic controlled House until January. Impeaching Biden doesn't do any good whatsoever. It gives everybody a moment of personal satisfaction, but you're putting a brain dead idiot in. If you 25th Amendment him out, you're putting Kamala in. And let's not give her any presents on the way out the door.
That's true.
There has apparently been an ongoing protest in the Senate building since yesterday, and arrests have started to be made as of roughly 30 to 40 minutes ago, apparently.
Which leftist group
anti-Israel.
Pro-Palestinians?
Yeah, well,
wait a second. Isn't this an insurrection, guys? I mean,
It is. That is what's being said.
Where was this?
The Senate building.
Oh.
Not the Capitol building, the one across the street.
A Senate building. So yeah,
I've been told that means you're literally trying to overthrow the government, and you should be put in prison for 3 years in solitary without any sort of legal proceeding. That's what I've been told.
Yeah, I mean,
well, we've all learned that interrupting political proceedings is actually not a law. But trespassing at the Capitol, apparently that's something we could lock you up for a long time.
Yeah. Well, the irony is fund life, not genocide, and these same people want you to have abortions, as many as possible, as late as
no. I mean, you don't even have to lean out that far to figure out they're literally endorsing a side that's calling for the genocide of the Jewish people.
Yeah,
it's that direct.
It's so sad to see so many people, so many Americans just utterly brainwashed. And you know where it started? Schools. It started in the freaking schools.
Yeah.
Notice all white liberal women, right? So,
well, ugly. That's what I was thinking.
What did I'm sorry. I thought that's what I said.
No,
it was implied.
I'll just go right for the gut here. It's like the people that are screaming on Twitter, et cetera, are just people who are horribly ugly, and them threatening to not have sex. Hey, you don't have to make that threat.
Yeah.
No, that's all right.
Yeah.
All right. Let me look on my notes here.
I'll
Well-
just cap that with it is women of low value who find the most value in consensus liberalism.
You know, so this is just I don't know. I don't know where this is coming from. This whole kind of let's go ahead and let Ukraine use these weapons. I want to say it potentially is Biden doing this, but then again, has Biden been doing anything? And
No.
if the answer to that is no, then this is no too, and therefore you have to figure out who behind him has done this. And so, I mean, now he's trying to, rush $275 million worth of weapons to Ukraine. And so what this is probably some more of his presidential directives, which basically move around stockpiles of already existing American material and transfer it directly to Ukraine through that process.
I'd just like to say, Scott, you can't say Joe Biden and Russia in the same sentence. Yeah, it's just not working for me. This isn't him.
Wrong.
This is the people that are running the country are doing this.
I mean, Joe, this can't be a surprise to you that he's rushing weapons, before the gates shut.
He's just trying to give out as much stuff as he
You're
can.
muted.
No, I'm not. Can you hear me now? Guess not.
I can.
I've been able to hear you the whole time.
Oh, so it's just Scott who couldn't hear me. Okay. All right. So, yeah, they're just trying to rush everything through as quickly as they can and get as much in there. Absolutely. Doesn't surprise me at all. Maybe it's Scott that's the problem because I can't hear him and he's talking.
Still can't get you, Scott.
That's Mike just gave out mid-show. That's a shame. Don't worry, he'll switch over to the headset moment, I'm sure. But yeah, I think it's the entire Ukraine brigade who's been. Let's not forget, right, that when Biden came in, he did push aside a lot of the Democratic Party elites and elevated a lot of lower level staffers from some of these activist organizations, and a lot of them were able to. Let's be honest, like they don't care that much about Ukraine actually, but they whip themselves into a frenzy about it because that's what's big and that's where you can make a name for yourself and that's where you can kind of push yourself up the political ladder quickly. And so I think that whole brigade is a part of why we're seeing this now as well. They know that nobody's there to stop them. They've been the key minders the entire time. So why not?
Still can't hear you, Scott. I just think, to me, this is a big money laundering scam. I just think this is a waste. This has been a waste from the beginning. To say that, Russia is a threat to NATO when Ukraine can hold them at bay is a lie, and it's being perpetuated on the European people and the people of the world. This is we have no national interest whatsoever. We do get titanium from them, but we can get them from other sources. So to be honest with you, there's nothing here strategically that makes any sense whatsoever. It never has. It was never in our national interest to be dumping billions of dollars of hardware and
meanwhile we're disarming ourselves, right?
Yeah, this made no sense. And there's nothing anybody can say that's going to say, oh, well, here's the bigger picture, and this is why this is important. Sorry, it's not. If Ukraine can hold off Russia, Russia is not a threat to Poland or any other place in Europe. That's it, plain and simple.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Yeah. The irony here, guys, is that, this is we're going to ship all this material over to Ukraine at the last minute. And oh, by the way, we just failed our last audit. I wonder why we failed our audit when we're just completely The Pentagon, is just absolutely, burning money to give away our goods over to them. Watch at the bottom of this, further down in this story, there's an interesting clip with Jon Stewart and I can't remember who this lady is, but she's like one of these ivory tower academic types who is just absolutely smelling her own farts on this topic.
Well, I think the clue to that is C-SPAN.
Well, let's be honest. Anything seems normal and smart and reasonable, you're in the presence of a true retard.
And abuse within a system.
Audits and waste, fraud, and abuse are not the same thing. So let's decompose
Then
these.
please educate me on
Sure.
what
So an
the
audit is
difference
exactly what you just described,
Yes.
which is, do I know what was delivered to which place?
Right.
The ability to pass an audit, or the fact that the DoD has not passed an audit, is not suggestive of waste, fraud, and abuse. That is completely false, right there.
What?
Right? Like I said, when Jon Stewart seems like the reasonable one, you're in the presence of real reverse genius.
Feeling an audit's a positive thing. It's great. We should be doing more of it.
Yeah.
So
The entire point
now-
of an audit is to detect fraud, waste, and abuse.
Exactly.
Correct.
Yeah, I
Now
worked
listen
in
to
a accounting firm for most of my career, and I got to tell you, I don't think her definition of audit and our definition of audit is the same thing.
I don't think that word you're using means what you think it does. The interesting point here is Jon Stewart, his first point here just goes to show you that he's operating with way too much common sense, and that, like I said, she's very smug and kind of self referential here. Anyway, I'll let him play the video.
It's suggestive that we don't have an accurate inventory that we can pull up of what we have where. That is not the same as saying we can't do that because waste, fraud, and abuse has occurred.
So in my world,
Yeah.
that's waste.
How is that waste?
If I give you $1 billion and you can't tell me what happened to it, that to me is wasteful. That means you
Well,
are
we didn't
not
necessarily-
responsible. But if you
We
can't
just
tell
don't
me
know where it is.
then what am I supposed to think? And when there has been reporting, I mean, this is not like I'm not saying this is on you and that you caused this, but I think it's a tough argument to
I'm pretty
make
sure I
that
didn't cause it.
an $850
She's
billion
not sure, but she's
budget
pretty sure.
to an organization that can't pass an audit and tell you where that money went. Like, I think most people would consider that somewhere in the realm of waste, fraud, or abuse, because they would wonder why that money isn't well accounted for. And especially when they see food insecurity on military bases, and they see.
You want to talk about that? Because that's a good. We should be talking. I mean,
Well,
I'm
it's
trying to
all-
understand
is-
where you're trying to go, other than the dollars, which really bother you.
I think it doesn't really bother me. I think it's all connected.
So, as an interrogator, pause this for a second. As an interrogator, let me tell you what illustrators are. What they are is they're big hand motions and full body movements meant to draw your attention away from the content of what she's saying because it's dishonest. And she's trying to hide a lie in there. She's doing all of that throughout this entire thing.
Oh, yeah.
And
She's turned her chair. The more he presses her, she's turned her chair to deflect him. She was facing him at the start. Now she's turned it sideways to deflect him.
notice to her hands constantly in front of her belly. That's protecting her most vital areas because she feels threatened. So, interesting.
Caffeine pill for $1 says repeal the Economy Act and stop foreign military financing. I agree with both of those. Let's continue this. This is pretty entertaining to me.
Tell me how you're thinking about that.
When I see a State Department get a certain amount of money and a military budget be 10 times that, and I see a struggle within government to get people like more basic services, and then that department that got that, I mean, we got out of 20 years of war and the Pentagon got a $50 billion raise. Like, that's shocking to me. Now, I may not understand exactly the ins and outs and the incredible magic of an audit, but I'm a human being who lives on the earth and can't figure out how $850 billion to a department means that the rank and file still have to be on food stamps. Like, to me, that's fucking corruption. I'm sorry. And if that blows your mind, and if you think like that's like a crazy agenda for me to have, I really think that that's institutional thinking.
I just want to point something out before we go any further. Just some angles to be aware of.
I think he wants to get as far away from her as possible when the lightning finally strikes.
Well, it's really hard to take a position that, hey, we failed an audit, but it's really okay.
It'd be interesting to see if he gets in a car accident in the next few days. That's been
he's
on
on Comedy Central. I think he's
DOD,
been punished
right?
enough.
I don't. I think this might be. I don't know. Is this recent? I think this might be a little older, but I wasn't sure. I mean, maybe it's just
they literally just
terrible.
failed the audit a couple days ago.
Oh, I know. But I thought this might have been an older video referring to a previous failed audit.
Maybe.
Yeah, I just looked at look at the quality of the video. It just didn't seem like, I don't know.
It's C-SPAN, dude.
I know, that's what I was just saying. It might just be the quality of C-SPAN. Yeah. So I mean, this is the kind of thinking though that, I mean, we don't need politicians to be more responsible. We need Doge to come in with a fucking wrecking ball and absolutely wreck house on 75% of government bureaucracy, fraud, waste, and abuse, which is exactly what all that stuff is.
We need a Secretary of Defense who says if we fail another audit, everyone who's associated with that will be terminated.
Yes.
That's it. It doesn't matter. You come down a heavy hammer like that, one, you're going to get people fudging the numbers every way they can so they don't lose their job. But you're also going to get a higher degree of accountability. This is ridiculous that we don't know where this money was spent, how it was spent, and if it was on goods, where are they? Her argument of, we just don't know where the stuff is. I used to work for the Defense Logistics Agency when I was in college. That was our whole job, was to know where everything was.
Yeah.
And having signed for a piece of equipment or two in my life, they know where literally everything is, right?
All right. Let's see, gentlemen. I was going to talk a little bit about North Korea here at the end, but I think I'm going to pass on that. Looking at the clock, let's jump. Let's go ahead and switch off of YouTube and go over to Bongino's. Anybody else got any final words for YouTube before we switch? Nothing heard. Watcher, go ahead and let's real quick. Let me put the link in the chat. That way, we're going to move on over to Bongino's as we're going to be talking some domestic political stuff here with the new cabinet selections and things like that. If you could just hit up that link there. What is YouTube? Nice. And head on over to Bongino's. That's where we will be directly. So sorry, YouTube, but ultimately,
let me say one thing before we go. For everyone going back and forth on there, does it really matter when the video was? Y'all always want to argue about the most irrelevant pieces of the video. I'm just saying.
Well, guys, I'm going to bow out here.
All right. Yeah, this is probably as good a spot as any. Blaine, thank you very much. By the way, I sent you an email. I don't know if you saw it. Some interesting information, I think, for future issues of Land and Sea Paradise. So if you would just give it a read and let me know what you think. I know you're busy, but I just want to get some feedback before I go any further with it.
No problem. It's good seeing you guys again.
Anything you want to pimp to the audience before you go?
Look, the Land Sea series is out there. It's doing great. I recommend, if you follow this show, pick up the book Tenure.
Oh yeah.
I
did you get yours, Scott?
Everyone in my class.
I haven't got it. I didn't get it. So,
all right.
I don't know. Is it? Should I look at my email?
You might want to. It would have come from Walt from Wargate.
Okay. All right. I'll give a look out for it and double check. It might have gone to junk or something.
All right. That's it for me, guys. Have a good one.
See you, Blaine. All right. Take care. All right, Watcher. And on that note, let's go ahead and move on over.
It's 11:59 America. This is Uncle Sam with Music and Dawn. Right now, I got a few words for some of our brothers and sisters in the occupied zone.
3, 6, 4, 6.
The chair is against the wall.
3, 6.
The chair is against the wall. John has a long mustache.
8, 2, 5.
John has a long mustache.
8, 2, 5, 0, 9.
It's 12 o'clock, Americans, another day closer to victory. And for all of you out there on or behind the lines, this is your song.